Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the workshop. It is fantastic to have you here. As you'll remember, we recently received this gorgeous Chambersburg 3CH power hammer, and we've already had to fix some issues on it. In today's episode, we're going to be solving the issue of the ram hitting the top of the cylinder cover. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey folks, before we jump in, I would like to thank today's sponsor, which is Skillshare, who is giving the first 1,000 of you who click my link in the description below 2 free months of Skillshare Premium, usually just $10 a month. That's 2 months to be able to access all of their 25,000 online courses and everything from business to video to photography, all sorts of arts and crafts subjects, so be sure to check them out at the link in the description. It's a great way to learn some new skills while you have some time to burn. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this. Let's jump in. This is the issue. That is when the ram hits the cylinder cover, which isn't good. If this cast iron assembly were to break, it would be a bad time. It's one thing having to put a new motor on a machine, but if you then need to try and source, which is impossible, you can't source a new part for this, so you'd have to try and make a new part. But it's not like there's a whole load of engineering drawings going around showing you exactly what it needs to look like, so it would be a huge problem if we broke that. And that's not to mention the health and safety problem that that would cause if you were to break that cast iron and have it fly down and land on the operator's head. So we want to go ahead and fix it. What I didn't articulate well enough in the last videos is how this issue develops. The way I explained it is I said, hey, I come over on this power hammer, slam the treadle down and start working. Well, if I come over here and I do the same thing, I send the ram to the top. But it's not because we're traveling too far with the treadle that we send the ram to the top. That's not the issue. The treadle goes exactly as far as it needs to go, and it's not going any further. We're not sending the ram to the top at the bottom of the travel. We're actually sending the ram to the top by traversing the first inch to inch and a half too fast at the right timing for how the rear piston is working in the cylinder. My thinking is it's an issue of the timing of these valves and how they're letting air through. And on that note, for those of you that don't know, I'm going to try and explain how this style of power hammer works, because I saw some of you folks commenting saying, well, Alec, it's all well and good seeing you fix this machine, but how does it work? Let's show you. Okay, so on the Anyang power hammer, I have drawn the insides. Now, the operating principle of this is basically exactly the same as the operating principle of the Chambersburg, and it's just ever so slightly different to the operating principle of the Pilkington power hammer from back in the UK. So here, there is a 10 horsepower motor. It has pulleys that connect to a rather large flywheel there. And that large flywheel slows down the revolutions per minute of the shaft that goes through here. The flywheel also gives it mass to maintain that rotational inertia. Through this shaft, which is spinning, you then have a crank. So that means just in reverse to how your bicycle works, the rotation of this shaft is translated into up and down motion in this shaft here. This shaft, as represented by this beautiful drawing, comes up into the rear cylinder. There's essentially a big huge pipe in the casting of this machine. And that shaft is on this piston, which is going up and down and up and down and up and down because of that crank. This means when that piston goes to its upwards position, the space here is decreasing, which means that it is pressurizing, and the air pressure is going to want to flow in the direction of least resistance, which is through this valve. And if that valve is all the way open, it is going to flow all the way through into the front cylinder. And then of course, when this piston is falling and going down, it's going to be pressurizing the underneath, pushing air through this lower valve into the bottom of the front cylinder. And this valving here is this valving here. And you'll see there is a linkage between the top and the bottom valve, so that as you depress the treadle, they are rotating and they're doing their job of controlling airflow. So remember, when this goes up, it's pressurizing this. Well, as you can see, our ram itself is essentially a piston. Because as that air goes into the top of this cylinder, it's pressurizing the top of the front cylinder and driving the ram down, and then as this rear piston falls down, it is pressurizing air into the bottom of the ram cylinder, pushing the ram back up. So of course you're probably thinking, well, what actually happens when you press the treadle down to make the ram go down? Okay, so this isn't perfect. The valving isn't perfect. This is a very rough and simple way to describe how this all works. When the ram is at idle, it sits up here at the top, and you'll see our rear piston is going up and down, and as it goes up, it's not able to push a whole lot of pressure through because the valve is essentially closed. However, as it goes down, it's able to pressurize the bottom of the ram cylinder and keep it lifted. Now, as we depress the treadle, the linkage is rotated up like this, which means when the rear piston is sent upwards, it's pressurized, and all of that pressure is pushed into the top of the ram cylinder, and it is forced down. When the rear piston comes back down, there's a path for air to push the ram back up. Rear cylinder goes up, pressurizes it, pushes it down, and it continues like this. And you get control through the timing and amount these valves are rotated. And so, if this valve was in this position, as that rear piston came up, there would be a certain limitation to the amount of air that was pushed down, and so the ram wouldn't be sent down with quite the same force, and so it wouldn't hit as hard, because as it goes down with less velocity, this rear piston comes back down and pushes the ram back up. So it's the interplay between rear cylinder, these valves, and the ram that gives us control, and I believe it is the timing of this top valve that is going to affect whether we send that ram up to the top. Because my suspicion is, what is happening is when I hit the treadle a little too fast and I open this up, if I open it at the time that this rear piston is on its way down, my suspicion is that it might be pulling the ram up. Or, as this rear piston is going down, there's just so much air coming in that it's just overpressurizing the bottom of the ram piston and sending it up to the top. But my suspicion is that the timing here is going to help solve this. But this is not just my suspicion. It's also the suspicion of ABS master bladesmith Jonathan Franco, who was very kind to let me know that on his power hammer he also had this issue, and he adjusted the timing between top and bottom valve to solve it by pulling the top valve down. But it's not just that. In the photos that I received of this machine before we decided to buy it, the linkage was different. You see right there? That's turnbuckle. There's the bottom valve, turnbuckle, top valve. When we were putting the treadle together, we looked as much as we could through all the stuff that we received to see if we could find that component, and we couldn't. This was all we could find. And so we just assumed that that was the linkage. And it definitely is. It fits perfectly. I'm quite certain this is the original linkage. But not only do we have my little suspicion that it's the timing, not only do we have Jonathan Franco of Franco Knives, there's a suspicion that it's the valve timing, but a little clue that maybe in its former life, this power hammer had a modification to it to solve potentially a similar issue and adjust the timing by being able to move a turnbuckle. The Anyang 165 power hammer features a similar ability to adjust the timing between the top and bottom valves. And I have adjusted the timing on these valves of the Anyang to give it just a little extra fine touch at the light end when we're not hammering too hard. And so, I think it's time for us to be able to make the timing between the two valves adjustable. And fortunately, we have the outline of a turnbuckle, and we have a turnbuckle. Alrighty, we have decimated our linkage. We've cut it in half and we've put some slots in it. This, obviously we stripped the galvanizing off of it in the vinegar overnight. We ground on the ends, and you see this is gonna fit in there just like that. I checked our hole centers over here and the distance between them before I cut it, obviously, so that we could have a good starting point. Lo and behold, I laid it up over here. Turns out this Rhino cart, which was wonderfully given to us by the lovely folks at Strong Hand Tools, is equipped with 5/8 holes, 2 inches apart, and lo and behold, it was a 16-inch hole center between the end to the end. And by putting these little 5/8 pins in the hole, we make sure that it's all gonna be welded up perfectly straight, and at the setting that the turnbuckle is currently at, we know we're gonna be at the exact same spot that we last used the power hammer, so we don't go too far in one direction or the other, and we always know our starting point. And so we'll drop this into here, and we're gonna get it MIG welded. Well, here in Montana, we are finally under a shelter-in-place order. Today is the 30th of March, 2020. As of Saturday, the 28th of March, here the governor issued a directive saying that all non-essential businesses and all non-essential activities had to stop for a period of 2 weeks. And so that means our usually busy workshop, there's usually about 6 of us here at the workshop all the time. We've got a great team of people that help make all of this stuff happen, make all the behind the scenes happen, ship all of our products, film, edit, and help serve and keep everybody entertained. And they're all working from home. And the reason I'm here is, from the best that we can understand of the directive about sheltering in place, minimum basic operations of a business can be maintained. And so I am here to maintain said minimum basic operations, work here alone, and get things done alone. Today is a quarantine day 1. It's gonna be just like the good old days. But it's nice to reflect back as I'm in this quiet workshop on those simpler times when I was just a wee young lad in the Barker Street Forge, cracking away when I started making daily YouTube videos. Time for a blast from the past, folks. Let's back to 2016.
Hey guys, my name's Alec. Thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled to have you.
So the plan today is to make a Fairburn Sykes knife. Thank you so much. 25,000 subscribers, are you kidding me? This is incredible. Okay, so over the last 150 days, I've made about 145 videos. On Friday, we put the turnbuckle on the power hammer. We need to now test the power hammer in all sorts of different settings of the turnbuckle to see what works best and avoids hitting the top. Alrighty, here is the control, the exact same way the linkage was set up. Heat number 1, let's see what it feels like. Feels fine, but now feels good. There we go. Hit the top that time. Alrighty, we hit the top twice on that heat. First, at the beginning it was working really well. But as I started to get a little more comfortable and I started to bring the treadle down a little faster, 2 occasions, we hit the top. I wanna look back at the footage and have a look at that, see if I see anything weird in the video. Jamie, can you play back right now in slow-mo when I hit the top on the last one? Because I feel like something happens in screen, and you guys might be able to know, I can't tell from looking at it on the camera itself, but something happens up in the top of the screen there. And the reason I wanted to look back at the footage is I wanted to see if anything's happening up here, if it looks like, you know, any like mist of oil is escaping or mist of air is escaping, because that can also be a sign there's some stuff to tackle up there. Let's adjust the turnbuckle.
So this is a gap of 3.125. Let's shorten it.
2.61. Here we go. Wanted to lightly hit the top. Really trying to see if we can make it hit it. It's not happening as much. It's very difficult because I don't know what I'm making up in my head and I don't know what's real. But it feels like it was more difficult to hit the top, and when it hit the top more lightly. We're gonna try the same setting again to learn a little more about how it feels right now. Much better! I'm really liking this. There we go, hit the top again. It took some doing though, it was difficult. Oh, and again, hit the top. Alrighty, no noticeable power drop. Much more difficult to make the ram knock the top. So,
Let's go back to the machine.
and I think the logical thing is we do more of what we did. If it made it better, we should do more of it until it starts making it worse. Feels like that's the logical thing, at least. We're gonna try 2.4. Try number 3. We hit the top very lightly. We hit the top again, just a little. I feel like it's hitting a lot lighter. Okey-dokey. We're learning stuff. It definitely feels like I've got to the point where we're now definitely losing power as we try and lay the treadle down. We had a very few light knocks, 2 of them, but there was less power. So we've reached the tipping point where I can feel there's less power, which we don't want. We want it to remain powerful. But I feel like the middle ground is gonna be our second setting or thereabouts. So we're gonna put it back there and take another heat and have a play with it some more. In the middle of that heat, I extended the turnbuckle 1 extra half turn, and it made it hit the top quite aggressively twice. So I think we found the sweet spot where we get all the power we want while also mitigating the amount of top cover hits. So we've made progress, that's for sure. So here we are up on top of the hammer. Now, I have fortunately, since we began on the turnbuckle idea, received some incredible advice from some fantastic hammer mechanics, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Now, both of them, instead of pointing me to adjusting the valve, which we've now already done, that's okay, we can easily undo it. They've both pointed me in the direction of looking up here at the cylinder cover head and at this, which is supposedly a valve. Now, as you can see from about the only piece of literature I can find on the Chambersburg power hammers, at the top there is what looks to be some sort of valve. And it definitely looks like it's this. The thing is, it doesn't really look like much of a valve. There doesn't seem to be an opening anywhere. This is meant to be some sort of a check valve that helps control the amount of air cushion between the ram and this cover. And if this isn't working well, it could mean that maybe too much air is escaping, or maybe the other way, and maybe it's causing us to hit this right here. So, first protocol, we're going to take this out and see what it looks like. So let's give it a clean to make sure no dust falls in when we open it. I'm such an idiot. Oh, look at that. Very, very cool. Pretty beefy spring. Looks like, yeah, oh, look at that. It's actually not all that strong. I can depress the spring by hand, but there's a spring there. Interesting. Oh, that's crusty in here, though. Take it apart, risk breaking it to learn about it. Smart. So let's take this off and have a look at it. Oh boy, what did I just drop? What did I? Oh no! You know, there's a lot of mean people that like to comment things about about me, saying how stupid I am. Maybe they're not mean, maybe they're just right. I've dropped a piece inside of this machine, which means that I now absolutely need to take this cover off to get it out. There we go, that's definitely crusty and dirty. So I have a feeling cleaning that up is gonna be worthwhile. I'm gonna put this in the ultrasonic cleaner to clean it up. Alrighty, the Allen key, biggest one we've got. Ah, yes. We need to make one. About 1/2 inch. Ta-da! Fits in a 9/16 socket. The socket fits into this, and here we go. Oh, look at that! Up, up, oh! Okay, we got the cylinder cover off. This is just crazy. Ba 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 ba. And down in there is the piece I dropped. This gives us the opportunity to have a look inside here, and I'm gonna give you a tour. That right there is the top of the RAM. We get to examine it. We see there's a little bit of rust right here, a little bit of rusting. That's not a problem. This thing has a beautiful seal. It's incredible how well it seals. And then you have a look over here, and what you see is these ports there line up quite nicely with the valve, the top valve. And so that top valve controls the air and pushes it into here. Oh, look at that! You can see the valve. I'm gonna turn the valve so you can see it move. Look at that! You can see the thing move. But have a look at this. This is quite interesting. There is a hole here that is not threaded. It's just a hole. We put a bolt in there. It feeds in to this hole right there. So, what does this hole do exactly? Well, this is the underside of the cylinder cover, and you'll see there is a cutout that lines up with that hole. That cutout goes all the way through into the hole where that little valve was, that spring-loaded valve. I just cleaned up that cylinder cover, and check this out. You see that? Right about there. That looks an awful lot like it's been dented. It looks an awful lot like this has got hit with an irregularly shaped thing, and I tell you, here, where there isn't a dent, feels smooth and square. Here, there's a lip there, as in this being hit has swollen it out. And this is where it gets very interesting, because as we come back up here, I would like to draw your attention to this. This is the top of the RAM. And you see there? It's got some weld on it. So here's an idea. I'm gonna take a photo of this, and we're gonna have a look and see how it compares. Oh, it looks just like it. I think that's exactly what has happened. That RAM has a concavity to it, and it goes all the way up here. And what I think has happened is at one point, it knocked the top, and those welds damaged the valve seat and meant that the valve couldn't perform properly. I think that might just be it. Quick update on the ultrasonic. This is just one of my favorite bits of equipment. Lovely for cleaning stuff, getting grease off of things. I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, which has been Skillshare, online video learning community with over 25,000 online courses in everything imaginable. If you have some free time, and I know a whole lot of you do, and you want to get yourself some more skills that are going to make you a more robust and talented employee in your organization, able to do more and take on more challenges, if you want to learn some skills that are going to help grow your business, perhaps, or increase your skills in a hobby that you love, there is a really great, efficient, and inexpensive way to do that, and that is by taking courses on Skillshare. You can learn at home on your computer or on the go with their iOS or Android apps. Your playback location is going to be synced from whatever device you use to the next. If you want to start a YouTube channel and be able to grow an audience and a community around the things that interest you, this is a course worth checking out. This is YouTube Success. Build an authentic channel that's worth the follow. You can get great tips and insights, and this is just a sneak peek of what there is on Skillshare. Please, folks, hit the link in the description down down below. First 1,000 of you that do are going to be getting 2 months of Skillshare Premium for free. It's the perfect time to learn something new. We're grateful for their support. Premium membership otherwise just starts at $10 a month. It's the end of the day now, and we're going to call it there for this episode. Obviously, we are going to try and get you as much content as we possibly can during these lockdowns around the world. We hope that you're staying safe. We hope you're healthy. Our thoughts are with you if you're suffering, and I hope that the only thing that you're suffering with is a little bit of boredom, and I hope that we can help give you some entertainment and help motivate you to get out into the garage if you're allowed to, if you got one where you can do some work, get some things done, if you're allowed to go outside and enjoy nature in a responsible manner. I hope you're able to enjoy some of that too. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next episode, hopefully tomorrow, because we're going to try and get you as much content as possible. Before you go, though, what do you think about us doing a little live show? Let me know. Drop a comment down below. Drop a like if you want a live show. Okay, see you guys tomorrow.